Red Bull reveals surprising progress on 2026 engine. Toto shuts down Max Verstappen to Mercedes, and all the latest F1 news. Picture this. Red Bull just claimed they might be developing their 2026 engine faster than Mercedes. Yeah, you heard that right. The same Mercedes that dominated Formula One for nearly a decade with their hybrid power units. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming, and it involves Max Verstappen getting his first taste of what could be his championship-winning weapon for the next era of Formula One. What's happening right now behind closed doors at Red Bull Powertrains is absolutely fascinating, and I'm about to break down everything you need to know about this seismic shift in the Formula One landscape. We're talking about a complete revolution in how these cars will work, and Red Bull is making some pretty bold statements about where they stand. Let me paint you the full picture of what's really going on here. Formula One is about to undergo its biggest technical transformation since the hybrid era began in 2014. The 2026 season isn't just bringing new cars, it's bringing a completely different philosophy about how racing should work. These new power units will have triple the electric power of current engines, creating a 50-50 split between battery power and traditional combustion engines. Think about that for a second. We're talking about engines that will generate around 400 kilowatts from the traditional combustion side, while the electrical motor will pump out 350 kilowatts. That's almost a 300% increase in electric power compared to what we see today. Plus, they'll run entirely on sustainable fuels, which is a massive step toward making Formula One more environmentally responsible. But here's where it gets really interesting for Red Bull. This will be the first power unit they've ever designed completely in-house. Up until now, they've been customers, buying engines from other manufacturers. Now they're stepping into the big leagues as an engine manufacturer themselves, partnering with Ford to create what could be their secret weapon. The man leading this charge is Ben Hodgkinson, Red Bull's technical director for powertrains. And here's the kicker. This guy spent 20 years with Mercedes and played a huge role in creating that dominant power unit that arrived in 2014. He knows exactly what it takes to build championship-winning engines because he's done it before. When the last major engine formula change happened, he was on the Mercedes side helping them dominate for years. Now he's admitting something pretty remarkable. He acknowledges that Red Bull started behind Mercedes in this development race. Mercedes had a head start because they could begin testing much earlier, leveraging their existing knowledge and infrastructure. When you're talking about over 20,000 components in a modern Formula One power unit, that head start matters enormously. Normally, teams might redesign about 600 components when moving from one season to the next. But Red Bull, they had to design every single component from scratch. That's an incredible undertaking, requiring them to essentially reinvent the wheel while their competitors were already refining their existing designs. But here's where Hodgkinson drops the bombshell that has everyone talking. Despite starting behind, he believes Red Bull is now developing faster than Mercedes. He's not saying they're ahead yet, but he's confident they're closing the gap at a rate that could put them in contention when the 2026 season begins. This isn't just empty bravado either. Hodgkinson is refreshingly honest about the uncertainty involved. He admits he's definitely not confident about where they'll end up, because in Formula One, you never really know where you stand until the cars hit the track for the first race. But what he is confident about is the support structure Red Bull has built, the team they've assembled, and the state-of-the-art facility they've created. And then we get to the Max Verstappen angle, which is absolutely crucial to this story. The four-time world champion recently visited the Red Bull Powertrains facility for the first time, getting his initial look at what will power his 2026 championship campaign. This wasn't just a casual tour either. Verstappen got to see engines running on dynos, heard exactly what his 2026 power unit will sound like, and experienced firsthand the incredible level of detail that goes into every component. According to Hodgkinson, Verstappen was genuinely impressed with what he saw. The facility tour apparently left him amazed at the sheer amount of hardware going through their production line and the complexity of their development process. For a driver who's used to the highest standards in Formula One, that's significant praise. What's even more telling is how Verstappen engaged during the visit. He wasn't just going through the motions of a PR tour. He was asking intelligent, probing questions about specific components and systems. He wanted to understand the technical details because he knows how crucial this engine will be to his future success. The fact that he quickly recognized he was dealing with like-minded individuals who share his obsession with winning speaks volumes about Red Bull's approach to this project. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. What Red Bull is attempting is incredibly ambitious and risky. Becoming an engine manufacturer in Formula One is notoriously difficult and expensive. Just look at Honda's struggles when they returned to Formula One, or the challenges Renault has faced over the years. Building competitive power units requires not just money and facilities, but years of experience and institutional knowledge. The timing of this transition is also critical. The 2026 regulation changes aren't just about engines, they're about completely reimagining Formula One cars. The new vehicles will be lighter and smaller, with active aerodynamics and other advanced systems. Getting both the power unit and chassis integration right simultaneously is a massive challenge that even established manufacturers struggle with. Mercedes, meanwhile, isn't sitting still. They've been developing hybrid power units longer than anyone else in the current Formula One field. Their expertise runs deep, and they've had the luxury of continuous development rather than starting from scratch. They understand the intricacies of energy recovery systems, battery management, and all the complex interactions between electrical and combustion power that make modern Formula One engines so sophisticated. Yet Hodgkinson's confidence isn't entirely unfounded. Red Bull has proven their ability to build championship-winning chassis, and they've attracted top talent from across the industry. Their partnership with Ford brings additional resources and expertise, particularly in areas where American automotive technology excels. Ford's involvement isn't just financial either. They're contributing engineering knowledge and manufacturing capabilities. The development race between now and the 2026 season opener is going to be absolutely crucial. Every month of development time matters when you're talking about this level of complexity. The team that makes the best strategic decisions about which areas to prioritize, how to allocate resources, and when to lock in their designs will have a significant advantage. What makes this story even more compelling is the broader implications for Formula One's future. If Red Bull succeeds in creating a competitive power unit, it could reshape the entire manufacturer landscape in the sport. Currently, there are only 4 power unit suppliers: Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Ford, and potentially others depending on future partnerships. More competition in the engine department typically means better racing and more competitive balance across the grid. The stakes couldn't be higher for Red Bull. They've committed enormous resources to this project, built an entirely new facility, hired hundreds of specialists, and bet their competitive future on their ability to master this new technology. If it works, they could dominate the next era of Formula One. If it doesn't, they could find themselves struggling to compete at the level they've become accustomed to. For Verstappen, this engine represents the potential foundation for extending his championship reign into the new regulatory era. He's already secured his place among Formula One's elite drivers, but the 2026 changes could either cement his legacy or present his biggest challenge yet. Having the right power unit will be absolutely essential to his continued success. The next 12 months leading up to the 2026 season will tell us everything we need to know about whether Red Bull's bold gamble will pay off. Will they really be able to match or exceed Mercedes' development pace? Can they successfully integrate their power unit with their chassis design? And most importantly, Will Max Verstappen's confidence in what he heard and saw during his facility visit translate into championship-winning performance on track? One thing is certain. Formula One's 2026 season is shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable and exciting in years, with Red Bull's engine development at the center of it all. Picture this scenario. You're 24 points behind your teammate with just 3 races left in the Formula One season. The championship dream seems to be slipping away, doesn't it? Well, not if you're Oscar Piastri. Today we're diving deep into why this young Australian driver might just have one final ace up his sleeve that could completely flip the script in the most dramatic fashion possible. The McLaren garage right now is probably the most tension-filled workplace in all of motorsport. 2 teammates, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, are locked in an absolutely brutal fight for the World Championship. And here's the kicker. While Max Verstappen still has a mathematical chance, trailing by 49 points, the real battle is happening between these 2 Papaya Orange warriors. Now you might be thinking, 24 points down with 3 races to go. That sounds pretty insurmountable. But hold that thought, because former Formula One driver Ralf Schumacher just dropped some serious insight that's got everyone talking. He's convinced that the championship momentum could swing back to Piastri faster than you can say Las Vegas lights. Let me paint you the picture of how we got here, because this season has been an absolute roller coaster of lead changes and missed opportunities. Early in the year, it looked like Norris had the upper hand. He grabbed that crucial victory at the Australian Grand Prix, while Piastri suffered a costly mistake that dropped him all the way down to 9th place. That early advantage seemed to set the tone, but in Formula One, nothing stays the same for long. Then came Saudi Arabia and everything changed. Piastri claimed his 3rd victory of the season, and suddenly the championship picture looked completely different. But the real game changer happened at the Dutch Grand Prix. While Piastri crossed the finish line first, Norris retired from the race entirely. Just like that, the young Australian found himself sitting pretty with a 34-point championship lead. At that moment, it felt like destiny was calling. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. That Dutch Grand Prix victory remains Piastri's most recent win, and what followed was arguably the most challenging period of his young Formula One career. The 24-year-old Australian had to completely overhaul his driving style while dealing with what team insiders cryptically referred to as other factors. The specifics remain unclear, but the impact was undeniable. Week after week, we watched as Piastri's championship lead evaporated. The turning point came in Mexico, where Norris finally overtook his teammate in the standings. By the time the dust settled, the British driver had pulled out to a commanding 24-point advantage. For many observers, it seemed like the championship fight was effectively over. But Ralf Schumacher isn't buying into that narrative. The 6-time Grand Prix winner has been watching this battle unfold with the keen eye of someone who understands just how quickly fortunes can change in Formula One. His assessment is fascinating and gives Piastri fans genuine reason for hope. Schumacher points to 2 critical factors that could shift the momentum back toward the Australian. First, if Piastri can rediscover that comfort zone with his car and start exploiting his full potential again, he absolutely has the pace to finish ahead of his teammate on track. We've seen glimpses of this returning speed, even during his recent struggles. The second factor is perhaps even more intriguing. McLaren's dominance isn't what it was earlier in the season. Both Red Bull and Mercedes have claimed victories in recent races, which means other drivers could potentially find themselves racing between the 2 McLaren teammates. If Piastri can get ahead of Norris on track, rival drivers separating them could maximize the points swing in his favor. This brings us to a crucial observation from the Brazilian Grand Prix. While Piastri was outscored 33 points to 10 by Norris that weekend, the underlying story was more encouraging than those numbers suggest. Despite a crash in the sprint race and a 10-second penalty that cost him valuable track position in the main event, Piastri was only 15 seconds behind Norris at the checkered flag. More importantly, Schumacher noted that Piastri showed genuinely good pace in the weekend's only practice session and during the Grand Prix itself. The German racing veteran emphasized that Piastri wasn't significantly slower than Norris and actually started the weekend strongly. The 10-second penalty for a restart incident was what really derailed his points haul, not a fundamental lack of speed. What's perhaps most impressive about this entire situation is how Piastri is handling the pressure. Schumacher has been particularly vocal in praising the young driver's resilience during this difficult period. He points out that what Piastri is demonstrating right now is exactly what separates good drivers from great ones. It's not just about raw talent, though Piastri clearly has that in abundance. It's about experience and the mental fortitude to keep fighting when everything seems to be going wrong. This resilience factor cannot be understated. We've seen numerous talented drivers crumble under championship pressure, but Piastri continues to show up and extract performance from his machinery even when the circumstances aren't ideal. That mental strength could prove absolutely crucial in these final 3 races. Now let's talk about the mathematics of this championship fight, because the numbers actually tell a more optimistic story for Piastri than you might expect. Yes, he trails by 24 points, and yes, that means Norris only needs to finish second in each of the remaining 3 races to secure the title regardless of what Piastri does. But Formula One has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Consider this scenario. One retirement for Norris coupled with a victory for Piastri would completely flip the championship standings. Suddenly, the Australian would find himself 1 point ahead with potentially 2 races still to run. In a sport where mechanical failures, crashes, and strategic mistakes can happen in the blink of an eye, that possibility is far from remote. The upcoming tripleheader starting with Las Vegas presents some fascinating strategic considerations. If Piastri can somehow replicate the kind of recovery that Norris showed after his disastrous Canadian Grand Prix weekend, he could find himself within 10 points heading into the season finale in Abu Dhabi. Add a sprint race victory into the mix, and that gap shrinks to just 9 points. Picture the drama of arriving in Abu Dhabi with everything still to play for. The final race of the season, 2 teammates separated by less than 10 points, fighting not just for race victory, but for the World Championship. That's the kind of storyline that makes Formula One the greatest sport in the world. Team principal Andrea Stella has also provided some encouraging news for Piastri supporters. He's gone on record stating that there are no fundamental problems with track layout compatibility for the remaining circuits on the calendar. This is significant because some of Piastri's recent struggles have been attributed to specific track characteristics that didn't suit his driving style or car setup preferences. The momentum shifts we've witnessed this season tell their own story. The championship lead began with Norris, swung dramatically to Piastri, and has since returned to the British driver. In Formula One, momentum is often cyclical, and there's absolutely nothing to suggest we won't see another swing in these final 3 race weekends. What makes this championship battle so compelling is how evenly matched these 2 drivers are. When both are at their peak performance level, there's often just hundredths of a second separating them. In such a close fight, small margins become enormous, and single moments can define entire championship campaigns. The psychological aspect cannot be ignored either. Norris has the advantage of leading the standings, which naturally brings a certain confidence and allows for slightly more conservative racing. But that same position can also create pressure, especially if Piastri starts mounting a serious challenge in these final races. Pressure makes diamonds, but it can also crack even the strongest competitors. For Piastri, being the hunter rather than the hunted might actually work in his favor. He has nothing to lose and everything to gain. That freedom can be incredibly liberating for a racing driver, allowing them to take the kinds of calculated risks that can swing championships. As we head into this final triple header, the stage is set for one of the most dramatic championship conclusions in recent memory. Whether Piastri can mount that comeback or Norris can hold his nerve and claim the title, one thing is certain. Formula One fans are in for an absolute treat. The dynamics can indeed change, and in a sport where anything can happen, writing off Oscar Piastri would be a mistake. The Formula One championship battle has taken a dramatic turn, and we need to talk about what's happening right now in this incredible 2025 season. With just 3 race weekends left on the calendar, Lando Norris has completely flipped the script and now sits at the top of the standings, leading his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri by 24 points and leaving Max Verstappen trailing by a massive 49 points. But here's where things get really interesting. After Norris dominated both the sprint and main race in Brazil, social media exploded with jokes about Verstappen needing to start the Las Vegas Grand Prix from the parking lot just to make it fair for everyone else. While those memes are hilarious, they've also sparked a serious debate that's been raging in Formula One circles for decades. Is it really about the driver's skill, or is it all about having the better car? Let me paint you the full picture of where we stand right now. Norris has been absolutely on fire lately, completely turning around what looked like a hopeless situation after the Dutch Grand Prix, where he was 34 points behind. His recent string of victories in Mexico and Brazil has been nothing short of spectacular, and suddenly he's not just back in the fight, he's leading it. Meanwhile, Verstappen put together one of the most impressive drives we've seen all season in Brazil, charging from the pit lane all the way to 3rd place on the podium. It was vintage Max, the kind of drive that reminds you why he's been such a dominant force in this sport. But here's the thing that's got everyone talking. Despite that incredible performance, he still finished behind Norris. This has led to a heated discussion about whether Norris is only leading because he's got the superior McLaren underneath him. Critics are saying that if you put Verstappen in that McLaren, the championship would have been wrapped up months ago. It's the classic Formula One debate that never seems to go away, and honestly, it probably never will. But Juan Pablo Montoya, the former Formula One driver who knows a thing or two about championship battles, has jumped into this debate with some pretty compelling arguments. He's basically saying that people need to pump the brakes on this whole better car narrative when it comes to criticizing Norris. Here's Montoya's key point, and it's a really good one. When Verstappen was dominating and winning races left and right, he had the better car too. You can't have it both ways. You can't praise a driver for being brilliant when they're in the superior machinery, then turn around and dismiss another driver's success because they have the advantage. The reality is that Formula One has always been about having the right package at the right time. It's never been just about pure driving talent, as much as we'd sometimes like it to be. You need both elements to succeed at the highest level of motorsport. Let's look at some historical context here. Think about Damon Hill, who won the championship with Williams in 1996, looking absolutely dominant. The very next year, he moved to Arrows and could barely scrape together 7 points all season. Same driver, completely different results based entirely on the car underneath him. Or consider Jenson Button's wild journey. In 2008, he was driving for Honda and finished 18th in the championship standings, looking like his career might be winding down. Then came 2009 with Braun GP, and suddenly he's the world champion. The transformation wasn't about Button suddenly becoming a dramatically better driver overnight. It was about finally having competitive machinery. Even Lewis Hamilton, one of the greatest drivers in Formula One history with 7 world championships and over 100 race wins, struggled massively when Mercedes fell behind during the transition to ground effect aerodynamics. It just goes to show that even the most talented drivers need the right tools to succeed. The truth about Formula One is that it's fundamentally dependent on the car. If you put Verstappen in the worst car on the grid this year, could he have outperformed what we've seen from some of the back markers? Probably. Would he be fighting for race wins and championships? Absolutely not. No driver, no matter how talented, can overcome a massive performance deficit between cars. This brings us back to the current championship situation. Montoya is convinced that Verstappen's chances are essentially over, and the mathematics certainly support that view. With only 83 points still available across the remaining 3 race weekends, that 49-point deficit looks almost insurmountable, especially considering Norris' current form. But here's where it gets really interesting for the championship battle. Montoya doesn't just think Norris has it wrapped up against Verstappen. He believes the McLaren driver could actually clinch the title before we even get to the season finale in Abu Dhabi. The key factor here is that Norris isn't just leading Verstappen. He's also got a healthy advantage over his own teammate. That 24-point gap to Piastri is crucial because it means he's not just fighting external threats, he's also managing the internal McLaren battle effectively. Oscar Piastri hasn't given up though, and mathematically he still has a path to victory. If he can win in Las Vegas and Norris runs into trouble, we could see the championship lead change hands once again. The beauty of Formula One is that mechanical failures, accidents, or strategic blunders can completely change the championship picture in a single afternoon. But let's be realistic about Verstappen's chances. While he's still mathematically in the fight, the combination of that large points deficit and McLaren's current performance advantage makes it extremely difficult to envision a scenario where he can mount a successful comeback. What makes this whole debate even more fascinating is how it reflects our relationship with Formula One as fans. We want to believe it's all about the driver, about pure talent and determination overcoming everything else. It's more romantic that way, more inspiring. But the reality is that Formula One has always been as much about engineering excellence as driving skill. The greatest champions in the sport's history have all had one thing in common. They were in the right car at the right time, and then they maximized that opportunity. Whether we're talking about the legendary rivalries of the past or the current battle between Norris, Piastri, and Verstappen, the principle remains the same. What's particularly interesting about Norris' rise to the top is how it's happened. This isn't a case of someone stumbling into a championship because their main rival had bad luck. Norris has been consistently fast. He's made the right strategic calls, and he's delivered under pressure when the championship was slipping away from him. The transformation from being 34 points behind to leading by 24 points doesn't happen by accident. It requires sustained excellence over multiple race weekends, and that's exactly what we've seen from the British driver. As we head into the final stretch of this championship battle, the question isn't really whether Norris deserves to be leading or whether his car is giving him an unfair advantage. The question is whether he can maintain this level of performance when the pressure is at its absolute highest. Formula One championships are won by the driver who can deliver the complete package when it matters most. Right now, with 3 races to go and everything on the line, Lando Norris is in the perfect position to claim his first world championship. Whether he can convert that opportunity into reality will determine how we remember the 2025 season for years to come. The 2025 Formula One championship battle has reached a critical juncture, and Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff just delivered a devastating blow to Max Verstappen's title dreams. With only 3 races remaining and Lando Norris holding a commanding lead, the Formula One paddock is buzzing with one particular phrase that's sending shockwaves through the motorsport world. When asked about Verstappen's mathematical chances of clinching his 5th consecutive world championship, Wolff didn't mince words. His response was as brutal as it was definitive, declaring that when it comes to the Red Bull driver's title hopes, that ship has sailed. This isn't just casual paddock talk. This is one of the most experienced team principals in the sport, writing off the reigning world champion's chances with 3 races still to go. But here's what makes this situation absolutely fascinating. We're witnessing something unprecedented in modern Formula One. For the first time in years, we have a genuine 3-way mathematical battle for the Drivers' Championship heading into the final stretch. Lando Norris sits at the top with 390 points, followed by his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri just 24 points behind, while Max Verstappen trails by 49 points. With a maximum of 83 points still available across the remaining races and sprint sessions, the mathematics suggest this fight isn't over yet. However, Wolff's assessment reveals the harsh reality behind those numbers. The gap between Norris and Verstappen has become what many in the paddock consider insurmountable. This represents a dramatic shift from earlier in the season, when Verstappen seemed destined for another dominant championship run. The transformation of this title fight tells a story that goes far beyond simple point tallies. The McLaren factor has been absolutely crucial in reshaping this championship battle. Their MCL39 car has emerged as the dominant force this season, allowing the papaya-colored team to secure the Constructors' Championship with an incredible 6 races to spare. This level of dominance hasn't been seen since the Mercedes heyday, and it's completely altered the competitive landscape of Formula One. What's particularly intriguing about McLaren's approach is their implementation of the so-called Papaya Rules. This internal team policy has allowed both Norris and Piastri to compete freely against each other, resulting in an equal distribution of victories between the teammates. Each driver has secured 7 wins apiece, creating an internal battle that has inadvertently kept Verstappen in mathematical contention far longer than many expected. The strategic implications of McLaren's team management philosophy cannot be understated. In previous eras, dominant teams typically would have backed one driver early in the season to maximize their chances of securing both championships. Instead, McLaren's decision to maintain sporting fairness between their drivers has created one of the most compelling intra-team battles in recent Formula One history. The turning point in this championship fight can be traced to specific race weekends that shifted the momentum decisively. McLaren's strategic decisions, particularly during the Italian and Singapore Grand Prix weekends, initially kept the door open for Verstappen's championship challenge. These moments demonstrated how quickly fortunes can change in Formula One, where a single strategic miscalculation can have championship-defining consequences. Verstappen's response to adversity has been nothing short of remarkable. Despite facing a car that wasn't consistently the fastest package on the grid, he managed to hit a purple patch that saw him narrow his championship deficit to just 36 points. This period showcased exactly why he's considered one of the greatest talents in Formula One history, extracting maximum performance from his machinery when it mattered most. However, the Brazilian Grand Prix proved to be the decisive moment that effectively ended Verstappen's title challenge. Norris delivered a masterclass performance, securing maximum points, while Verstappen could only manage a podium finish despite an impressive recovery drive from the pit lane. This 33-point swing fundamentally altered the championship mathematics and prompted Wolff's definitive assessment. The psychological aspect of Wolff's statement cannot be overlooked. As someone who has managed championship battles between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, he understands the mental dynamics that come into play during title fights. His endorsement of McLaren's handling of their drivers suggests he recognizes the delicate balance required to manage 2 championship contenders within the same team. Looking ahead to the final 3 races, the strategic considerations become increasingly complex. Wolff acknowledges that McLaren now holds what he describes as a very solid advantage, but emphasizes that the team cannot afford any mechanical failures or racing incidents that could swing the championship in an unexpected direction. This highlights the razor-thin margins that still exist despite the points gap. The Las Vegas Grand Prix represents the next crucial battleground in this championship fight. The unique characteristics of this street circuit, combined with the high-stakes nature of the championship battle, promise to deliver exceptional racing action. Both McLaren drivers will be acutely aware that they're fighting not just against each other, but against the specter of potential disaster that could change everything. What makes this situation particularly compelling is the recognition that McLaren's drivers can now truly unleash their competitive instincts. With Verstappen effectively out of championship contention, according to Wolff's assessment, the gloves can come off between Norris and Piastri. This sets up a fascinating dynamic where two teammates will be fighting for the ultimate prize with minimal external interference. The broader implications for Formula One are significant. This championship battle represents a changing of the guard, with McLaren emerging from years in the wilderness to challenge for the sport's ultimate prizes. Their resurgence demonstrates how quickly competitive balance can shift in modern Formula One, where technical regulations and development capabilities can rapidly alter the established order. Wolff's experience managing intra-team championship battles gives his assessment particular weight. He understands the unique pressures that come with having two drivers from the same team fighting for the World Championship. His praise for McLaren's handling of this situation suggests they're navigating these treacherous waters with remarkable skill and maturity. The tension within McLaren will undoubtedly intensify as the championship reaches its climax. While Wolff acknowledges this inevitable increase in pressure, he expresses confidence in Andrea Stella's ability to manage the situation effectively. This vote of confidence from a rival team principle speaks volumes about the respect McLaren has earned for their professional approach. As we head toward the championship conclusion, the mathematical reality supports Wolff's stark assessment. For Verstappen to overcome his current deficit, he would need to win all remaining races while hopping for significant point losses from both McLaren drivers. In Formula One's current era of reliability and consistency, such dramatic swings have become increasingly rare. The legacy implications of this championship fight extend far beyond the 2025 season. If Norris or Piastri succeeds in claiming the title, it would represent McLaren's first Drivers' Championship since Lewis Hamilton's victory in 2008. Such an achievement would cement their return to Formula One's elite tier and potentially establish a new competitive dynamic for years to come. This championship battle has delivered everything Formula One fans could hope for: dramatic shifts in momentum, exceptional individual performances, strategic masterclasses, and genuine uncertainty about the final outcome. While Wolff may believe that Verstappen's ship has sailed, the final chapters of this remarkable season still await to be written. The Formula One world is buzzing with controversy, and today we're diving deep into one of the most explosive claims to rock the paddock this season. McLaren's CEO, Zak Brown, has just dropped a bombshell accusation that could change everything we thought we knew about Red Bull Racing and their superstar driver Max Verstappen. Picture this: a four-time world champion who's won 58 out of 111 races since 2021, supposedly running his own team like a personal kingdom, while everyone around him walks on eggshells. Sounds like something out of a Hollywood drama, right? Well, according to Brown, this isn't fiction. It's exactly what's happening at Red Bull right now. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just some random accusation thrown around during a heated press conference. Brown has put these explosive claims in writing in his brand new book titled 7/10 of a Second. And the timing couldn't be more dramatic, considering Verstappen is currently sitting in third place in the championship standings, a staggering 49 points behind McLaren's own Lando Norris. So what exactly is Brown claiming? He's essentially saying that Max Verstappen has transformed Red Bull into his personal empire, where every decision revolves around keeping the Dutch driver happy, even if it means sacrificing the team's competitive balance and fairness. Brown argues that everyone at Red Bull appears to be afraid of Verstappen, creating an environment where the entire organization bends to his will. This accusation becomes even more intriguing when you consider the current championship battle. For the first time since 2020, Verstappen isn't leading the drivers' standings. Lando Norris holds a commanding 24-point lead over his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri, with Verstappen trailing significantly behind. This dramatic shift in fortunes adds serious weight to Brown's claims about Red Bull's supposed over-reliance on their star driver. The McLaren boss doesn't pull any punches in his assessment. He specifically points to Red Bull's driver selection decisions as evidence of their fear-based approach to managing Verstappen. Brown highlights the team's choice not to sign Carlos Sainz for the 2025 season as a prime example. According to his logic, Red Bull deliberately avoided bringing in a driver who could genuinely challenge Verstappen, preferring instead to maintain a hierarchy where their world champion remains unchallenged internally. This strategy, if true, appears to be backfiring spectacularly. The numbers tell a compelling story. Verstappen has scored all but 25 of Red Bull's points this season. His teammates, Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, have struggled enormously to extract pace from the RB21 car. This massive performance gap raises serious questions about whether Red Bull has indeed tailored their car so specifically to Verstappen's driving style that it's become virtually undrivable for anyone else. The implications of this approach extend far beyond just driver selection. Brown suggests that Red Bull's entire operational philosophy has shifted to accommodate Verstappen's preferences and requirements. This means everything from car development to race strategy could potentially be filtered through the lens of what works best for their star driver, rather than what might be optimal for the team as a whole. The timing of these revelations becomes even more significant when you consider the dramatic changes that have swept through Red Bull this season. Christian Horner, who had been with the team for over 20 years, was abruptly dismissed following the British Grand Prix in July. His replacement, Laurent Mekies, stepped up from his role at Racing Bulls to take charge of the main team. Horner's departure came at a particularly volatile time, with intense speculation linking Verstappen to a potential move to Mercedes for the 2026 season. The fact that these leadership changes coincided with Verstappen's championship struggles only adds fuel to Brown's argument about the team's unhealthy dependence on their star driver. What makes Brown's position particularly interesting is his contrasting philosophy at McLaren. He explicitly states that this kind of driver-centric approach goes against everything he believes in as a team leader. Brown emphasizes that McLaren's company ethos revolves around fairness and healthy internal competition, rather than creating what he calls a one-man team or a driver's own little empire. This philosophical difference becomes even more apparent when you look at McLaren's current success. With both Norris and Piastri performing at exceptional levels, McLaren has created exactly the kind of competitive internal environment that Brown champions. Both drivers are pushing each other to greater heights, resulting in McLaren's strongest championship position in years. The ripple effects of Brown's accusations extend throughout the Formula One community. His claims challenge the conventional wisdom about successful team management in Formula One. Traditionally, many teams have built their operations around a clear number one driver, but Brown's criticism suggests this approach might be fundamentally flawed in the modern era of the sport. From a strategic perspective, Brown's argument raises fascinating questions about resource allocation and development priorities. If Red Bull has indeed focused their car development primarily around Verstappen's requirements, it could explain why their other drivers have struggled so dramatically. This approach might have worked during Red Bull's dominant years, but it appears to be creating serious vulnerabilities now that other teams have caught up competitively. The psychological dynamics at play here are equally compelling. Brown's use of words like afraid and terrified, when describing Red Bull's relationship with Verstappen, paints a picture of an organization that has lost its way. Instead of maintaining the kind of strong leadership structure that successful teams require, Brown suggests that Red Bull has essentially handed control to their driver, creating an unhealthy power dynamic. This situation becomes even more complex when you consider Verstappen's undeniable talent and track record. The Dutch driver has achieved incredible success, cementing his place among Formula One's all-time greats. However, Brown's argument suggests that even the most talented drivers need to operate within a balanced team structure, rather than becoming the sole focus of every organizational decision. The championship implications of this debate cannot be ignored. As we head into the final tripleheader of races in Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, Verstappen faces the very real possibility of losing his world championship for the first time since 2020. This potential outcome would represent a seismic shift in Formula One's competitive landscape and could validate many of Brown's criticisms about Red Bull's approach. Looking ahead, these accusations could fundamentally alter how Formula One teams approach driver management and organizational structure. If Brown's assessment proves accurate, it might force other teams to reconsider their own approaches to building around superstar drivers. The balance between supporting your best talent and maintaining healthy internal competition could become one of the defining strategic challenges of the modern Formula One era. As this championship battle reaches its climax, one thing is certain: the relationship between Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing will face unprecedented scrutiny. Whether Brown's explosive claims prove accurate or not, they've already succeeded in highlighting some of the most fundamental questions about leadership, power, and success in Formula One's high-stakes environment. What if I told you that one simple dashboard change completely transformed a Formula One driver's entire championship campaign? Stick around, because the mental breakthrough we're about to uncover could change how you think about pressure and performance forever. Picture this scenario. You're leading early in the season, everything looks perfect. Then suddenly you're 34 points behind your own teammate. Your championship dreams are crashing down around you. Most people would crumble under that kind of pressure. But what happened next in the McLaren garage reveals something fascinating about the human mind under extreme stress. This is the story of how Lando Norris went from calling himself completely lost to leading the championship by 24 points. And the secret weapon wasn't a faster car or better strategy. It was removing a single piece of information from his field of vision. Let me take you back to where this all started. The Monaco Grand Prix has always been the ultimate test of precision driving. One tiny mistake and you're kissing the barriers. For Norris, Monaco became the turning point, but not in the way you might expect. After another costly qualifying error, he made a decision that seemed almost too simple to matter. He removed the delta time display from his dashboard, that little number showing how fast or slow you're going compared to your target time. Gone, just like that. Now here's where this gets really interesting from a psychological perspective. Former IndyCar champion James Hinchcliffe noticed something crucial about when Norris was making his biggest mistakes. They weren't happening during intense wheel-to-wheel racing where external pressure was at its peak. No, they were happening during qualifying when the internal pressure was highest. Think about your own life for a moment. When do you make your biggest errors? Is it when someone else is putting pressure on you, or when you're putting pressure on yourself? For most of us, it's the latter. We become our own worst enemy. Hinchcliffe observed that Norris was absolutely brilliant in racing situations. Put him in a door-to-door battle at 200 miles per hour, and he rarely put a wheel wrong. But give him a clear track in qualifying where he needed to extract that final tenth of a second, and the mistakes would creep in. The pattern was always the same. He'd dominate the first two qualifying sessions, then something would go wrong in the crucial final session where pole position was decided. It happened so often that when he made an error on his first run in Brazil, seasoned observers were already thinking, here we go again. But then something extraordinary happened. Instead of letting that mistake define his session, Norris went back out on fresh tires and absolutely destroyed the competition. He secured pole position for both the sprint race and the main Grand Prix, then went on to win both events. This wasn't just fast driving anymore. This was a driver operating with complete mental clarity. What changed? The removal of that delta time had freed his mind from the trap of overthinking. Instead of staring at numbers and getting lost in data, he could trust his instincts and feel the car beneath him. Sometimes the solution to our biggest problems isn't adding more information or trying harder. Sometimes it's about removing the noise that's clouding our judgment. This transformation didn't happen overnight. Since making that dashboard change at Monaco, Norris secured 9 front-row starting positions in 14 races. That's not luck or coincidence. That's the result of a fundamental shift in how he approached high-pressure situations. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. When Norris retired from that first race after the summer break due to mechanical failure, he found himself 34 points behind his teammate Oscar Piastri. In Formula One, that's a massive deficit. Most drivers would start thinking about next season. Instead, Norris did something remarkable. He maintained his new approach even when the championship pressure intensified. Racing expert analysis suggests that his mistakes in the first half of the season always came when internal pressure was highest. He'd been fighting himself as much as he was fighting other drivers. The breakthrough moment came when he learned to separate what he could control from what he couldn't. You can't control mechanical failures or other drivers' mistakes. You can't control weather conditions or safety car timing. But you can control how you prepare mentally and what information you allow to influence your performance. This principle extends far beyond the racetrack. How many times do we sabotage ourselves by focusing on metrics and data that create more anxiety than insight? Whether you're giving a presentation, competing in sports, or pursuing any high-stakes goal, there's wisdom in identifying what information helps you perform versus what information hurts your performance. The confidence factor plays a crucial role here too. Hinchcliffe noted that Norris's confidence is now in exactly the right place, but it's measured confidence. He's not getting cocky or arrogant. There's a fine line between the confidence you need to perform at the highest level and the overconfidence that leads to mistakes. What's fascinating is how this mental shift affected his entire approach to the championship fight. Even though McLaren no longer had the dominant car they possessed early in the season, Norris adapted his strategy. When the margins became tighter between teams, the psychological advantage became even more important. The beauty of this transformation is that it reveals something profound about peak performance. We often think that accessing more information or analyzing more data will improve our results, but sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes peak performance comes from trusting your preparation and removing the distractions that prevent you from executing what you already know how to do. Consider how this applies to your own challenges. Are there metrics or feedback loops in your life that create more anxiety than improvement? Maybe it's checking social media engagement numbers too frequently, or obsessing over daily weight fluctuations when trying to get in shape, or constantly monitoring stock prices when investing for the long term. The Norris transformation teaches us that sometimes the most powerful change isn't adding something new to our routine. Sometimes it's identifying what we need to remove. What delta time display do you need to take off your dashboard? This story gets even better when you realize that Norris didn't just improve his qualifying performance. His entire racing approach became more fluid and natural. When you're not constantly second-guessing yourself based on data, you can respond instinctively to changing conditions. You can trust the thousands of hours of preparation you've already put in. The championship battle between Norris and Piastri also reveals something interesting about how mindset affects performance under pressure. Both drivers are learning to handle championship pressure for the first time, but Norris found his breakthrough by simplifying rather than complicating his approach. From a competitive standpoint, this transformation came at the perfect time. With 3 rounds remaining in the championship, leading by 24 points, Norris positioned himself as the favorite. But more importantly, he developed a sustainable approach to high-pressure performance that will serve him throughout his career. The lesson here transcends motorsport entirely. Whether you're an entrepreneur making crucial business decisions, a student preparing for important exams, or anyone facing high-stakes situations, the principle remains the same. Sometimes the key to breakthrough performance isn't found in adding more complexity to your approach. Sometimes it's found in removing the elements that create mental interference. What started as a simple dashboard change became a complete transformation in how one of the world's best racing drivers approaches pressure. And maybe, just maybe, it can spark a similar transformation in how you approach the pressure situations in your own life. The next time you find yourself overthinking or getting lost in data that creates anxiety rather than insight, remember the McLaren driver who became a championship contender by choosing to look away from the numbers and trust what he already knew how to do brilliantly.